Hi kids, it's so good to see you again today. I'm glad you could join me. This is the first chance I've had to sit down all day. It's been a real busy day as I've been preparing for my family and a meal we're going to have tonight. It's going to be a special meal, just like Jesus was going to be having a special meal on Holy Thursday. Speaking of which, we better find out what was happening on Holy Thursday in Jesus' life, and we'll see that through the eyes of our donkey. Let's take a look. Thursday came, and the little donkey was taken back into Jerusalem. There were things to carry to bring back for a special meal for Jesus and his disciples. The donkey didn't mind carrying them at all. The donkey didn't even mind after the meal going all the way back to the top of the Mount of Olives, where Jesus asked his disciples to pray with him. But they fell asleep. The donkey stayed awake and watched with Jesus. Jesus was very sad when he prayed. So sad that an angel came to help him and give him strength. The donkey felt sad for Jesus. Oh, if only there were some way to help him. While the donkey was thinking, up the road came soldiers with ropes and swords. That man who had snuck away on Wednesday, he was leading them. He went right up to Jesus and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Then the soldiers tied Jesus up with their ropes and they led him away. The donkey tried to help. He brayed as loud as it could, but they still led Jesus away. Luckily, the donkey's rope was not tied, so it was able to follow them. Then, everything happened so fast. First, Jesus was yelled at an unfair trial, and then he was led back and forth between different leaders. One of them made terrible fun of Jesus. So that is what happened on Holy Thursday that the donkey saw. Let's go back a little bit and talk about why I have all these things here in front of me. You see, one of the things they were doing that night for their special meal and celebration was making unleavened bread. Okay? Now, unleavened bread was bread that was made without yeast. Do you know what yeast does in bread? Makes it get puffed up and makes it do what's called rising. And so bread will get puffy and big and you can slice it. Well, unleavened bread isn't like that. It doesn't rise because it has no yeast. You bake it very quickly, and it's the only kind of bread that I can make and not screw up because I'm not a really good cook. And as much as I love to make bread because my hands get to be in it and it's fun to work the dough, I tend to overwork it or underwork it. So my bread doesn't come out very well when I make it, but I can always make unleavened bread because I never have to worry about messing up the yeast in it. Well, I have a lot of ingredients here because I'm going to be making more tonight. And then I'm going to have to, in a few minutes, go and flip my bread that's in the oven. And I'll show you how you do it. It's kind of neat. So anyways, what I have here are some ingredients. Now, Jesus and his disciples were remembering way back to the time of Moses when all of the Hebrew people were in bondage under Pharaoh, and Pharaoh was very cruel to them, and he made them work very, very hard. Well, Moses came along and said, no, God wants you to let his people go, and Pharaoh wouldn't do it. His heart was very hard. Well, then after 10 plagues, there were all kinds of them. There was turning the water to blood, and there were flies and frogs, and there was hail and darkness and all kinds of different things that happened. And then on the last night of the 10 plagues, so on the 10th one, God said to Moses, you tell everybody to bake their things, go into their homes, and they're going to mark above their doorsteps and on the sides with blood of a lamb that they're going to kill, and then they're going to cook that lamb, and it was called the Passover lamb. They were all going to eat lamb, and they were going to have unleavened bread because they were going to need to leave in a hurry. And so that's what they were doing. And every year what ended up happening was there was the plague of the firstborn, and Pharaoh's boy, his oldest boy, he died. And Pharaoh was so upset by it that finally he said, okay, Your God is the true God, and I'm going to let you go. And they left. And so they crossed the Red Sea, and many things happened. Well, they weren't faithful to God. God had promised them that He would deliver them out of slavery. He would deliver them out of slavery and bondage into a land that was wonderful. And He called that land a land flowing with milk and honey. And what that meant was all of their needs would be met. It wouldn't matter what it was. So there would be plenty of things there for them. So there was milk. There was plenty of places for them to graze their sheep and their goats and be able to have milk. And there was wheat that they were able to do. So I have the flour here. They could grow their wheat and their barley so that they could make bread. There was lots of bees and things that made good, delicious honey as a sweetener. And there were olive trees. So there were where they could make olive oil and have oil. You could dip your bread in it, or you could use it to make bread. There's all kinds of things you can do with olive oil. And so those are the ingredients that are going to go into our bread. And I'm going to show you, I've already made a batch. And your mom and your grandma, they already have a recipe for it if you want to try it. And what I do is I take it and I squish it about and I make it into a loaf that looks something like this. Now I've broken it, my loaf, and you see how I do what's called scoring the bread with my knife, but I've pulled this one apart so that you could see what shape does that make. Can you tell with the white on the inside? If you went straight down from the top down and then across, do you see what that is? It is a cross. And that reminds us of the Passover. And the Passover was kind of a foreshadowing of what would happen with Jesus. I'm losing my bread. It keeps sliding off my cutting board. So what would happen was they would mark their doorposts on the top and on the sides. And if you drew a line from the top to the bottom and to connect the two sides, you see a cross. You get a cross shape. And Jesus said on that night when they were celebrating their meal, He said, as they had their unleavened bread together, He said, "This is my body." And He said, "It's broken for you." And He said, "Whenever you eat this, remember me." And then, of course, that's why we do communion together. Well, instead of grape juice tonight, I have a cup here because when I make bread, it makes me very thirsty. And so I have my cup today, and in it is water. And so I am reminded also, which is one of the other ingredients in our recipe is water, that Jesus once told a lady at a well, he went to get some water. He said he was thirsty, and she was there getting water to drink, and he asked her for a drink. And she said, "Oh, I'm not supposed to share with you. You're a Jewish man, and I'm a Samaritan, and I'm not supposed to. Your people don't like to drink out of our things." And Jesus said to her, "I am living water, and if you taste the water I give you, then you will never be thirsty again." Well, I'm a little thirsty because I'm making bread, so I'm going to have that. And then I'm going to have a little piece. I think I'm going to snitch a piece, and it's really good with peanut butter on it, or you could put a little honey on it, whatever you want, but it's really yummy. And I hope when you eat it, you remember this. You remember how much Jesus loved you, okay, and how much He does love you, that He died for you. And I want you to remember that He is the bread of life, and He promises that He will give us life in abundance, and that He promised to be living water for us. And so remember that and drink deeply. So enjoy your bread, like I'm going to, and enjoy your water. I love you. We'll see you later. Have a great Easter, people.